Kazuya Mishima, the cold-blooded oppressor of the series. There are times in the Tekken story where despite Kazuya being one of the most important characters, he is either on top of his game or not really doing all that much. So in this video, I'll be ranking Kazuya's role in the story in every canon Tekken game, ranking him from useless to King of the Iron Fist. In the first King of Iron Fist tournament, Kazuya starts out as the main character of the series. Kazuya's goals for entering the first tournament is to not only get revenge on his father Heihachi for throwing him off a cliff, but to also take over his father's company, the Mishima Zaibatsu. Kazuya fights his way through the tournament, manages to make it to the finals, and confronts Heihachi. He then defeats Heihachi, throws him off a cliff, and successfully takes over his father's company with an iconic smile. Kazuya makes a great first impression by entering the tournament, blowing past the competition, and becoming the very first winner of the first tournament, making this an easy King of the Iron Fist here. After Kazuya takes over the Mishima Zaibatsu, he just goes on a wild takeover, with crimes ranging from kidnappings, ordering assassinations, smuggling endangered animal species, etc. During the events of the tournament, Kazuya runs into Jun Kazama, a wildlife surveillance officer hoping to arrest Kazuya for the smuggling of animals. Kazuya finds Jun to be mysterious, a woman that approached him without fear. The two become very close to each other to the point where they bang off screen, leading to the birth of Jin Kazama. But during the events of the tournament, Heihachi comes back stronger and manages to get to the final stage to fight Kazuya. Kazuya even transformed into his devil form to get one up on him. However, Heihachi manages to push through and completely defeat Kazuya. So after that, Heihachi decides that in order to kill Kazuya for good, he throws him into an active volcano. This not only kills Kazuya, but also has his devil gene powers cut into two, the other half escaping his body. So yeah, Kazuya went on a rampage with the power of the Zaibatsu, committing all the crimes listed, gaining more power, and his interaction with Jun. All of this would make his role in the game a King of Iron Fist, but due to his loss against Heihachi and the loss of half his power, I have to knock him down a tier. Still cool though. Even though he was brought back to life by G Corporation only a few days after his loss against Heihachi, Kazuya is not involved in the Tekken 3 story. So instead of being present in the third game, Kazuya put himself through multiple experiments to try and figure out the mechanics of how to properly control the devil gene, with the hopes of not only defeating Heihachi, but destroy the Mishima Zaibatsu in its entirety. 20 years later, Heihachi sends out the Tekken Force to break into G Corporation to not only steal research data, but to also find Kazuya as he was needed for Heihachi's plans. But when the Tekken Force start raiding the building, they all run into Kazuya and they all get taken out. After the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4 was announced, Kazuya enters the tournament despite knowing it's a trap created by Heihachi to lure him out. While still in the tournament, Kazuya was set to fight against his son Jin, but Jin didn't arrive to the match, ending in his disqualification. Kazuya heads towards the final stage to fight against Heihachi. Before the fight even starts, Kazuya questions Heihachi on Jin's whereabouts, and Heihachi says he'll tell him after the match. Now when it comes to the ending of this fight, there are two outcomes. 1. Heihachi wins the fight. This could be the case because in the Tekken 5 manual in Kazuya's bio, it says, having been beat by Heihachi Mishima and Jin Kazama in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4. 2. Kazuya wins the fight. Honestly, I believe that Kazuya winning the fight is the real outcome because it makes sense. Because not only is it supported by Tekken 8 Story Mode DLC, but there's also a cutscene where it shows Kazuya being the winner, while for Heihachi there is no cutscene after winning. So because of that, I'm gonna say that Kazuya won the fight against Heihachi and won the 4th tournament. After winning, Heihachi keeps his promise and takes him to see Jin in the Temple of Honmaru. Once they enter inside, Kazuya's devil persona takes control, explaining to Heihachi that now that he has Jin right in front of him, he can take back his powers from Jin in order to make himself complete. He then blows back Heihachi and tries to take Jin's power, but it fails. Seconds later, Kazuya attempts to regain control over his body and manages to succeed, eliminating the devil persona for good and making the power his own. Kazuya then wakes up Jin to get the rest of his devil power back, but ends up getting put to sleep. So in summary, I'd say that Kazuya had a pretty good run during the events of Tekken 4, being brought back to life, studying the devil gene, taking down the Tekken Force, beating Heihachi, winning the 4th tournament, and taking control of his devil power, showing that all those experiments that he went through paid off in the end. Even though he did lose to Jin, I'd say this is a King of Iron Fist here. After the events of Tekken 4, Kazuya alongside Heihachi wakes up after their fight with Jin, only to get immediately ambushed by Jack 4 robots sent by G Corporation in order to kill both Kazuya and Heihachi. Kazuya and Heihachi both temporarily team up with each other to fight against the Jacks. And it was going well, until Kazuya threw Heihachi to the Jacks, leaving him to die as the robots cause a giant explosion to kill Heihachi. Kazuya comes to the realization that G Corporation, the very company that brought him back to life, have turned against him, and he enters the 5th tournament to make the traitors pay. Now main story wise, Kazuya doesn't really do all that much, but what we do know is that Kazuya manages to get to the higher ups of G Corporation and kills them all. With no one left to stop him, Kazuya takes full control and becomes the new leader of G Corporation. And that's really it for Kazuya's role in the story for Tekken 5. He doesn't really have much going on in the story aside from his team up with Heihachi and his takeover at G Corporation. Overall, I'd say he's alright. Not long after Kazuya became the leader of G Corporation, Jin uses the newfound power of the Mishima Zaibatsu to start an international war for seemingly no reason. Overseeing the chaos, Kazuya sends the military power of G Corporation to combat the forces of the Mishima Zaibatsu, making the overall public think that G Corporation are the good guys in this war. But Kazuya isn't fighting the war out of the goodness of his heart, but because he doesn't want anyone but himself to control the world. He then follows Jin to the desert in order to find a source of power tied to the Devil Gene. But before he could proceed any further, he then gets into a battle with Lars, ending in a stalemate. Frustrated, he leaves the desert alongside Anna, but not before telling Lars the true nature of the Mishima bloodline. It's their fate to fight and betray each other. And that's really it for Kazuya's role in the main story in Tekken 6. Once again, he doesn't seem to do a whole lot aside from being seen as the good guy by the public for facing against the Zaibatsu. Overall, I'd say he's alright. So the first time we see Kazuya in Tekken 7 is when he finds out that Heihachi has returned and reclaimed the Mishima Zaibatsu in Jin's absence. Now for a good portion of the story, Kazuya sits on his chair and just watches from the sidelines. Later on, while Heihachi and Akuma were fighting, Kazuya sends out the Jack 6 robots to take out Heihachi. Once all the Jacks get taken out, Akuma and Heihachi continue their battle, ending with Heihachi losing. It's also here that we find out that Akuma is only here because he made a promise to Kazumi that he would kill Kazuya and Heihachi. Once Kazuya receives that information, he decides to just laugh it off. Sometime later, Akuma shows up to the G Corporation tower to fight Kazuya, and that's when Kazuya finally gets off his chair. Before the fight starts, Kazuya asks Akuma how he knows about his mother, and Akuma says it's because Kazumi saved his life once. Which is vague. Anyway, they start fighting, and Kazuya transforms to try and get the upper hand. But before they could be a winner, Heihachi fires off a satellite laser from space to take Kazuya and Akuma out, destroying the G-Corp tower in the process. Kazuya survives and later on learns that he has been exposed by Heihachi for being a devil to the world. As a response to this, Kazuya fires a laser and destroys the satellite, causing massive chaos in the city. Later on, Kazuya and Heihachi would go on to have one last battle inside the volcano, determined to kill each other for good. As the fight goes on, Kazuya unleashes his full power form, while Heihachi powers up to the max. Kazuya then hits Heihachi with his most powerful move, but it still wasn't enough to kill him. Eventually, Heihachi gets the upper hand and manages to knock Kazuya back into his base form. With both of them beaten and tired, Kazuya uses whatever strength he has left and punches Heihachi in the chest, stopping his heart. With that being done, Kazuya then picks up Heihachi's body, and in the Mishima family tradition, throws Heihachi into a pool of lava, killing him for good. Or so he thought. Kazuya's overall role in the Tekken 7 story is a mixture of good and bad, mostly bad. The good things are that he manages to beat Heihachi, survives his fight against Akuma, and that's it. The bad stuff is that he just sits on his office chair almost every time we saw him on screen, fails to kill Heihachi with the Jacks, and fails to kill Heihachi himself. And I can get into a whole rant as to why Heihachi's survival in Tekken 8 is so stupid, but that's not the video for that. I'ma save that for Heihachi's video eventually. So for now, just know that Heihachi surviving just makes Kazuya look stupid because he clearly looked down where Heihachi was falling. Overall, I'd say Kazuya is just alright in the Tekken 7 story. Thankfully in this game, Kazuya is much more active this time around, as he is literally the main villain of this story. The story starts off with Jin confronting Kazuya in order to kill him. They fight for a while, Kazuya tells Jin to power up, and then Jin gets the upper hand for a few seconds before Kazuya transforms. Kazuya then tells Jin that as long as he lives, the kill count will only continue to increase, and then he just kills off a bunch of innocent people just cause he can. Jin gets mad, tries to punch Kazuya, it doesn't work, and then Kazuya fires off a Kamehameha-sized laser to finish Jin off. After that, Kazuya makes a global announcement to the world, saying that they rely too much on weapons and technology instead of using their fists to fight, and because of that they've become too weak, declaring that he will rewrite the rules of the world. He then proceeds to destroy every satellite in space, and after that, he announces the 8th King of Iron Fist tournament, where if the fighter loses, the country that they represent will be destroyed along with them. Which is something I kinda wanted to see, but whatever. After that, the tournament gets started, and Kazuya just watches as the tournament goes on. Later on, Nina, who's working for Kazuya, informs him that the woman they're looking for is in Italy with Claudio, that woman being Zafina who has Azazel's power. We then head to the Colosseum where the finals are taking place. Some matches happen, the Fine Jin team are there as well, and Lars and Victor meet up to discuss plans. After Jin wins his fight against Leroy, Kazuya then shows up to make a speech about his ideal world and power. After that, Victor and Lars' forces raid the tournament to find Kazuya, while simultaneously Zafina and her group arrive. As soon as they enter the Colosseum, Kazuya flies down and slam dunks on Zafina, raising her into the sky and releasing Azazel's power. Kazuya then revives Azazel in order to not only beat him, but absorb his power as well. Kazuya and Azazel then fight for a while, but not before Kazuya grabs his tail and hits him with the Mario special, and then punches Azazel in the nuts. Kazuya then fully absorbs his power and then gains a new form. Everyone then decides to jump Kazuya, and to no one's surprise, they all fail. The only one who managed to get solid hits on him was Reina, but that doesn't last for very long. But while they were jumping Kazuya, Claudio was charging up his exorcism arrow to finish off Kazuya, but Kazuya moves out the way. Kazuya then fires off a beam that supposedly kills Claudio, but not before making his arrow do a U-turn and hits Kazuya. At first it didn't seem to do all that much, but then we see that there's a crack, which makes Kazuya lose control over Azazel's power and retreats after that. We then see Kazuya being told by Nina that they've sent troops to Jin's location, which is in Yakushima. Kazuya says to leave Jin alone, so that he can kill Jin himself. Later on, while the United Nations and the G Corporation forces were fighting, Kazuya shows up to the battlefield and destroys everyone. He then senses where Jin is at and then flies there. Once he arrives, he fights Lars, who's trying to protect Jin. Kazuya then blasts Lars, thinking that he's down, only for Lars to get up and headbutt the PTSD into Kazuya.
The fuck?
Much time has passed and Kazuya is still fighting Lars. Kazuya blasts Lars one more time, but Jin saves him. Jin and Kazuya then fight once again, but this time Kazuya decides to end it all by creating a whole Frieza death ball to destroy the whole island. And while Jin was trying to push the ball back, he got his angel power up from Jun and manages to move the death ball out the way. Shortly after that, the ocean starts to erupt and explodes. A giant rock shooting into space while Jin and Kazuya are on it, like it's JoJo Part 2. And we just get a constant back and forth between these two, just overpowering each other, with their rage arts lasting more than 10 seconds. After all that, they end it with one final clash, struggling to the point where they transform back into their base forms, their energy exploding in space, and the meteor falls down back to Earth. Which leads up into the real final battle, with both of them stripped of their power and left to fight with whatever they have left. And despite having no powers, Kazuya was still putting in the pain, but Jin wasn't going out like that. The fight goes on and they have one last clash. Kazuya gets put to sleep and seemingly gets found by Jun Kazama later on. And that's it for Kazuya's role in the Tekken 8 story. It's already a great improvement from his previous story roles in Tekken 6 and 7. Where he's much more active this time around. With him being the main villain in this game, there's clearly a lot more focus put onto him. His positives go from beating Jin at the beginning, announcing the 8th tournament to lure his targets, catching Zafina to revive Azazel and take his power, soloing everyone in the Colosseum, taking out everyone in the battlefield, being on equal footing with Angel Jin, and managing to somewhat overpower Jin despite his weakened state. The only downsides to him are failing to kill Lars and failing to kill Jin. I'd say Kazuya was doing very well in the story. being the biggest threat in the story and standing on business whenever he needed to. In my opinion, this is a King of Iron Fist tier. If you somehow made it up into the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. This video took me a good while for me to get done, and I think I'm happy with the way this video turned out. I want to give a big shout out to Jeremy Klinger for the video idea, as this video was inspired by his How Useless Is series. I low-key wanted to do this kind of video because of how much time and effort the developers like to put into the Tekken story, which they've been doing since the first game. Hopefully this video does well, cause I do want to make this into a series, and I have a bunch of other characters in mind. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'ma see you later.